I'd like to start this meeting by introducing myself and my colleagues from the Office of Research who will be your panel today, both to provide information and also to answer your questions. So I'll start. I'm Lisa Barreau. I am the Vice President for Research. I'm a professor of chemistry, and I have been at Utah State University since 1998. I'm joining you today from the student offices of my research labs, specifically room 316, Widsoe Hall, because as we talk about standard operating procedures today, I wanted to keep in mind for myself the kinds of things that I'm thinking about for my research environment. And so Blake
Tullis, I'm a professor in civil and environmental engineering. I've been in the Office of Research for 1 year now. I've been at Utah State since 1997. And I work at the
Blake, we're going to have you fix your volume a little. You were a little difficult to understand. So when you come back next time, we'll up your volume and speak a little louder. Thank you. Alexa.
Hi, I'm Alexa Sand, and I'm also an Associate Vice President for Research in the Office of Research. I'll be moderating the discussion, so I'll be funneling the questions through to Lisa and Blake. I also have a very different research environment than Lisa or Blake because I work independently as a humanities researcher, a lot of libraries, a lot of books, a lot of archives, but I too have created a research SOP to make sure that I'm thinking about all the ways in which risk of COVID transmission enters into my practice.
Thank you, Alexa and Blake. To get us started, I just wanted to speak a little bit about USU research and its importance. Just in the last few days, we've seen some of the outstanding research being done by our faculty. I'd like to specifically point out the work of Janice Brawny from the Watershed Sciences Department, whose work in microparticles of plastics is getting international attention. I'd like to draw to your attention Keith Roper's research, who is looking at identifying COVID transmission using wastewater streams and is doing so in a way that's helping our local communities. These kinds of leadership roles for research is what we want to continue and excel. And we know that many of you right now are thinking about how to continue your research through this COVID-19 pandemic. And so what we're here today to do is to support you in your research and your creative activities in whatever way we can. The primary goal today, however, is to look at the development of these standard operating procedures to determine how we can best perform our research safely and productively. We recognize that you as researchers have been impacted to varying degrees across campus by the COVID-19 pandemic. We never completely paused research, as happened on many campuses. But consistent with our university remaining open while classes were moved to remote delivery, some areas of research continued. We encouraged remote research activities and know that many of you continued moving forward using that approach. We also recognize, however, that some researchers have been completely paused, such as our research involving in-person human subjects. We recognize that some projects, such as summer field work, may not have moved forward. We also recognize deeply that our student researchers and postdocs have been affected in terms of their ability to conduct research and move toward degree completion or to their next career opportunity. I know that we're all anxious to move forward. We want to continue our research and creative activities. Today, a key step for doing that is to recognize the risks that are involved in these activities in terms of COVID-19 transmission and to carefully plan how to minimize that risk. With that in mind, I'm going to take you back to USU Policy 337, Safety and Health. In that policy, researchers, PIs, are expected to ensure, within reason, that principle-based safety education and specific safety training related to their areas of research is provided to our students, our lab personnel, and our staff within the workplace and the laboratories. For this reason, it is important that every researcher, including faculty who work individually in offices with books and electronic resources, as well as those who operate in collaboration with non-USU investigators, whose institutions and organizations already have COVID-19 SOPs, it is important that we as individual researchers create a plan and file it with our department head. This does three things. It compels us to reflect on our own practices and where risk enters into it. It facilitates the modeling of exemplary behavior for our community and for our students. It also protects you and the university from legal issues, from undue liability. So today, the goal of our town hall meeting is to discuss with you the process by which you will develop and obtain approval for your COVID-19 specific SOPs for your research environments and activities. The expectation for developing those SOPs is that you'll use information provided by USU, the Office of Research, including our website and template, CDC guidelines, and resources unique to your area of research or creative activity to prepare SOPs. In doing so, I strongly encourage you to work with your colleagues. There are going to be areas of overlap where you can share best practices in the development of these SOPs. For department heads that are attending today, I encourage you to collate the SOPs and make them available as you can to share among your faculty to generate ideas. In the Office of Research, we will continue to work to enhance our SOP development resources, including through the posting of examples on our website. As we introduced ourselves, we noted that myself, Blake, and Alexa are all active researchers on the USU campus. We are all in the process of developing our SOPs. And so I want to just tell you quickly before we start how my process is working. So right now, I have engaged my students in an activity to develop our COVID-19 SOP. We've converted it to a Google Doc and are working in a group way to develop the procedures in our laboratory. After this meeting today, I will be meeting with them where we will review our initial draft. By engaging my students in this way, I'm gaining their expertise of how the laboratory functions even when I'm not there, and also providing insight on how they can help think through better processes. And so with that, as you are all aware, our process is that you download the template. That template has examples in 4 key areas. We developed this based on peer institution data, as well as information we gained from other sources, such as the CDC and Utah State University's requirements. That template then should be submitted to your department head once it's complete for review and approval. We left the approval process at the department head level because we feel that department heads have the best knowledge in which to be able to evaluate the proposed plan. So with that, our format going forward today is we are first going to address some questions that came from you before the meeting, and then invite you to submit additional questions by chat. And so Alexa is moderating this, and she will direct questions to Blake and I, although I'm going to say I will direct a portion of those questions back to Alexa. We work very much as a team in the Office of Research, and so each of us has areas of expertise, and so I will call on the appropriate person to comment on each question. So Alexa, perhaps we can start our questions.
Great. So Lisa, the first question has to do, and here kind of drawing together 2 questions that were very similar. How do we navigate working with non-USU co-investigators or collaborators on our project, especially if their institutions may have different guidelines, or even if their guidelines don't exist, they're free to do whatever they like. How do we engage that process?
First, I think we need to look inward. We need to define for ourselves our own best practices with regard to addressing risk in our environment. And in doing so, what I hope you'll be able to do is share those best practices with colleagues. Where differences arise, as they will, we are operating right now on a state and national landscape that differ in terms of the COVID-19 risk. And so that I do fully anticipate that you will have differences. These are issues that I would encourage you to work out, working in a way that you are cautiously proceeding with the best guidance available. If the Office of Research can assist in that by helping you to identify areas that you need additional information, please contact us. But I'm going to emphasize here a point I will probably return to several times today. We in the Office of Research feel that you are the experts of your areas. We feel that general guidance was the best way to go because we feel that you can use the resources available to best determine how to proceed in your area. We will be absolutely supportive in helping you identify resources if needed, but this is something that is specific enough that we feel that you need to develop plans that are specific related to your area of research or creative activity.
Great. The next question has to do with field research. Why do we not have specific SOP guidelines for things like camping, driving in pickups, or collecting samples from nature?
Okay, this again returns to the point I just made. We as an office do not feel that it is our place, or frankly, that we are capable of imagining all the different types of scenarios that are included in our research activities. We are happy to provide direction towards resources. So for example, for those who do field work, earlier this semester, we disseminated to our associate deans for research information from another university regarding field-based practices. You can find those in many university listings. We could post one as well, but they're just as easy to find right now using a Google search. And so we again feel that you are the experts in the field and draw on available resources to develop an SOP and discuss with your colleagues whether these meet their ideas of best practices as well.
Lisa, has USU been designated as a safe haven from liability in the event that someone gets COVID in your lab or in your research group? And what protection is there for PIs from lawsuits?
Yesterday, University Counsel Micah McKinney answered this question to university leadership, including department heads. In her response, she noted that as a state entity, we are covered by something called the Utah Government Immunity Act. Now, that means we have protection from liability if we are following our policies, procedures, including our standard operating procedures. And so my best advice to all faculty in developing these is that this sets the guidelines by which you will expect those working with you to operate in your research and creative activity environment. Following those SOPs is your best step toward meeting your requirements.
So this question, the questioner writes, I have heard that facilities will be making available supplies such as masks and hand sanitizer, but I haven't heard or do not recall how we go about obtaining the materials. And is there a formal request process or someone specific we can call?
This is where our website, which you have been directed to for the preparation of your SOPs, now does contain links to both USU facilities and to the main USU page for COVID-19 information. I strongly encourage you to review these sites periodically as they are being updated on a daily basis. In terms of the masks, 2 masks are available for each employee at Utah State. This is outlined on the COVID-19 specific page for Utah State. In terms of cleaning supplies, as is noted on our website, you can call the facilities customer service line and discuss with them cleaning supplies that you will need in your environment.
Lisa, there's also a link to environmental health and safety if you have any questions about best practices for your lab or environment.
All right, our next question has to do with those who have been diagnosed with COVID-19 and then cleared for return to work by the Bear River Health Department. So basically those recovered cases. What should they do about going back to work in a lab, whether they're the PI or a lab employee?
This is a great question. For all PIs, when questions arise regarding either employee exposure to COVID or this situation where an employee was diagnosed but then has recovered, all questions of that nature should be directed to USU Risk Management. They have a number, again, that's on our website. Following up with them, they will make a determination for the university of the employee's involvement. So if, for example, you would have a student indicate to you that they test positive, you should immediately reach out to USU Risk Management to follow their guidance on how to proceed next.
So here's a question about the laundry. Should lab laundering their own lab coat at home, or is it okay for someone to wash everyone's coat in the washer in our building, as is normal practice?
This question arrived early before the meeting, and I've discussed this with Alexa and Blake. This is an instance where we feel this question is best directed to our Environmental Health and Safety Office. And so we will be following up on this question and posting information to our website to follow. This question, the laundering of laboratory coats, has come up in several contexts over recent years. And I feel that our EH&S has the best expertise working likely with risk management to help us determine how to proceed here. So I cannot answer that today, but we will work on it.
Okay, great. The next question is a little bit complicated, although it's one that we've heard many variations of over the last couple of days and weeks. So it begins, is there any intention or plan to make wearing masks on campus universally required? If not, why not? And then 2 sub-questions. I work in a lab space that is shared with other research groups. My team is all wearing masks, but students and lab members in the other research groups aren't. Is there any way we can establish a uniform policy? And secondly, not requiring masks could cause confidentiality problems. If somebody's not wearing a mask for a health reason, there may be a violation of their privacy rights. Complex question.
Thank you. That question is one that's being put forth university-wide for all types of spaces. I'm going to give you what I know as the most current information regarding the wearing of face coverings on campus. As President Cockett indicated yesterday, the wearing of face coverings is expected when you cannot achieve social distancing within a space. I followed up with USU Counsel Micah McKinney 1 hour before this meeting today and asked her this very question. Her response to me was that within research environments where social distancing cannot be maintained, the PIs can require their participants to wear masks. So in these type of environments where you cannot separate, and I'll use as an example the very room I'm standing in. This is the room where I talk with my students about our research. There are student desks in here. The laboratory is right back there. I would be required under my SOP to have masks worn in this room when more than one person is here.
Great. I guess the secondary question in there about if you're sharing a lab space with other labs, how can that be enforced across multiple research groups?
Okay, here's where I think I'm going to draw on the best science available. The best science tells us that masks prevent the spread of disease. A recent Science article from a little over a week ago had a wonderful graphic showing that wearing masks by all parties reduces the transmission of COVID-19. And so within research environments, I would strongly encourage that mask wearing is required by the PIs. Now, if there are differences of opinion that cannot be resolved, I would encourage you to reach out to University Council. And the way you can do that is they have an email set up. It is covid-19@usu.edu. Specific areas where there may be a difference of opinion or where legal issues may come into play would be best resolved through consultation with that office. Again, covid-19@usu.edu.
Next question. I would like to provide PPE such as personal reusable masks for each of my lab members. Additionally, in order to provide a safe and still functional work environment in the lab, my group needs plexiglass shields as physical barriers between individual workstations. Such shields need to still permit eye contact and the close visibility that is needed in delicate scientific procedures. Is there a general university fund or an account that can be used to pay for such equipment?
Okay, that's a great question. This is going to be an answer that has multiple components. One, if you're thinking of doing plexiglass type installations, I would encourage you to reach out to USU facilities. Their general number is on our website, on the COVID-19 SOP preparation website. And I would also have you reach out to risk management. They have developed some thoughts, some ideas on where is best to put in these types of plexiglass structures. So I would be sure to consult with them. With regard to funds, Vice President Dave Cowley has discussed that in some cases there may be opportunity for reimbursement. And so this is something my office will continue to look for clarification on. With regard to the research environments, if you're going to maintain going forward at this point, I would encourage you to purchase them and enter them into the database that has been created on campus for COVID-related costs. If you don't know what that is, your business manager does. The other thing I would encourage you to do is if you're doing sponsored research, contact your program officer and ask whether those expenses are appropriate for your grant activities. I can tell you as a PI, I've done exactly what you're thinking. I've purchased the disposable masks for around my lab so that we always are ensured of having a supply. I will continue to follow up with those on campus asking about the reimbursement issue, but for now, the steps I would take are as outlined. Purchase what you need, register it in the USU database for COVID-related modifications that are happening, and also talk with your program officer.
I'm going to summarize this one a little bit to make it more general, but with research that is being conducted in a partnership with another institution where that institution's IRB has oversight, that researchers still need to file a plan?
The way I'm understanding this question is we have a researcher on the USU campus whose activities significantly involve work with another campus and their IRB. I think their plan should be developed here at USU, yes, but it should focus on the USU-based activities. So those could involve the activities specific to that project, or preferably more generally, any other research activity going on here on campus or in related USU areas.
Great. Left turn here. What constitutes robust disinfection of shared surfaces and equipment?
Again, an excellent question. This applies to both our research and teaching environments. There are questions like this one that we don't have complete answers to yet. It is something we will continue to follow up on with USU facilities, both with regard to the type of reagents we should be using for cleaning as well as who should be doing the cleaning. I think we all have in mind that there may be areas that facilities can assist, but there may be areas where facilities can't assist, and that may be related to instrumentation or to other areas where inherent dangers would prohibit facility staff. This is something we will continue to follow up on. For right now, if you want to gain information on how facilities is working in your area, call their general number again, which is on our website, and they can at least tell you what is being done currently. For example, are they cleaning outside surfaces outside your work area? Are they entering your work area and doing any additional cleaning? And I would encourage you to determine what's going on around your area and then build your SOP based on additional things that are going to need to be done.
So, given the current situation that we're seeing in our immediate community and across the state of Utah, of a move away from higher degrees of caution towards a more open interpretation of the green status, what is the university going to do, and should SOPs be responsive to that? What's our stance vis-a-vis this push to move to green? I'm summarizing like 4 different.
Excellent question. President Cockett yesterday talked about this. The university is an environment unlike any other in Cache Valley. We are a very large institution, and when our students arrive back in the fall, we're going to be the biggest employer, the biggest area of concentration of people in Cache County. With that being said, I support exactly what's going on, as President Cockett talked about yesterday to university leadership, which is we will need to be doing extra precautions that are beyond those being done by the county in its move to green. We need to be cognizant of the fact that our environments, the ways that we work, the ways that we perform our research necessitate that we put extra caution into our standard operating procedures. And for this, I think this is an excellent question. I'm going to draw in my colleagues, Alexa and Blake, because we come from such different areas of campus that I think their perspectives on how we address this disconnect would be nice to hear. So Alexa?
Well, essentially my feeling from my meetings with other members of the APLU, Council on Research, and my discussions with faculty on campus is that part of our role as a land grant institution is to set a standard of behavior that is absolutely impeccable. That means, you know, here we are at this meeting wearing our masks. I'm actually at home with my family, so it's kind of symbolic. But the point is that when we go out in public, when we represent the university, it's absolutely crucial that we maintain the highest standards. And it's really kind of an ethical charge on all of us as faculty and leaders at a land grant institution. We are here to serve the community, and that can never leave our view of the landscape.
Blake.
I don't know if I have much more to add to that. Yeah, I agree that we need to model, as the President Cockett has said, model appropriate behavior, and apply common sense, but maybe go to the conservative side of common sense. If we keep ourselves healthy, that's great. If we keep our research staff healthy, that means our research can keep going, and that's good for everybody. So I think getting these steps in place, coming up with a good plan that makes sense for your research environment is crucial, and it pays off with productive research, hopefully. Lisa, Alexa, can I just interrupt for a second? So there's a comment in the chat that says, well, I'll just summarize, I won't be specific, but it says, if things that are promised as support aren't actually available, things are different, what do we do? For example, cleaning supplies or something. Is the COVID-19 at usu.edu the place to bring that up for discussion?
I think so. And thank you for that question. We are hearing from facilities that they have bulk purchased cleaning materials. And so that is my understanding right now. If that is not available, we will certainly follow up, but I encourage the person who asked this question to go ahead and follow up at covid-19@usu.edu. That email is a general one that is being directed to all different vice presidents with regard to the situation. And so while it's going into the Office of General Counsel, they will pass it on to Dave Cowley's office. So please follow up in that way.
And this is a fairly uncertain environment. So we think things are working. If there are things that aren't working, please let us know, because that needs to be fixed.
Absolutely.
Next question. Are SOPs still required for research teams that are fully and permanently distributed or remotely, for example, an extension, and only interact with human subjects via digital survey instruments?
I'm going to address the question of, is an SOP required? In terms of human subjects related research, I would direct any question regarding that to our Office of Human Research Protection and Nicole Vuvalis to assess that situation and provide feedback. With regard to preparation of an SOP, as my colleague Alexa said, maybe Alexa, why don't you say what you said this morning with regard to how the development of SOPs for COVID had affected you, and what kinds of things you found very positive about what you did?
Well, I mean, I think just the process of sitting down and looking at those questions in our guidelines and thinking about how they apply to the work I do, which is really individual library-based research, museum-based research. Obviously, I'm not traveling right now to the kinds of collections I'm looking at in a normal situation, but I think just sitting down and going through those and thinking about how does this apply to, say, my office where I meet with students to discuss their research projects? How does it apply to the way that I handle my materials or share information with others? It's an incredibly useful process, and it also puts me in a position where I'm empowered to know that I'm doing all the right things and doing all the things I can do to minimize risk at the university. So everyone should do it, even if you're just an art historian looking at pretty pictures.
Can I just also add that there's, in that example, people putting together an SOP for somebody who works remotely or work at home, whatever, I think there's some level of comfort provided to department heads getting those. It's partly for you to come up with a good SOP like Alexa explained, but it's also for department heads to say, yeah, I think we have everything covered. Everybody understands the environment, the circumstances, and everybody's operating safely. So your plan could be very, very simple, and that's okay.
In fact, I've made my plan available to the history department, and anyone else who's interested can ask me for it. We'll have it on our website. It's less than a page and a half. It's very simple, but I think just that exercise is important.
And with that, I come from a very different area of campus. The discussions with my group have been multi-layered and detailed, I will put it that way, in terms of how we address everything from the use of equipment to the positioning of people within our research environment and many other issues. And so each of us will need to think about how best to protect our environments, and we will be posting examples as they become completed.
So the next question, which is the last of the submitted questions, can research labs not conducting essential COVID-19 related research start to repopulate before July 1st if they have an approved SOP?
We never formally shut down research at Utah State University. We put out guidance encouraging researchers to work remotely. Many of you followed that guidance. Now, if you wish to resume activities in your environment, you must do so in a safe manner. So I would follow the steps of preparing the SOP, having it reviewed by your department head, and then yes, you can move towards repopulating. Now, the general campus has chosen not to repopulate until after July 1. But President Crockett did make clear in her statement yesterday that because research can address these types of issues on an individual work environment level and does not involve direct interaction with the public, say the way the registrar's office would, that research could proceed.
Great. So from the chat, can you please address how PIs can use grant funds to pay hourly workers if they become sick from COVID-19?
This is a common question right now, and I cannot address it specifically. And the rationale behind me answering that way is because we don't have complete guidance from the federal agencies. The federal agencies such as the National Science Foundation, the USDA, NIH, are continually putting out updates, but we do not yet have specific information. I would encourage you to contact your sponsored programs official to ask about any latest guidance, and so contact our sponsored programs office. Additionally, on the COVID-19 website, the Vice President for Business and Finance has posted information about leave-specific issues for employees. And so please review that information as well and contact Human Resources for additional clarification. This is a work in progress. I apologize that it can't be more definitive at this point, but it is something that's being worked on by a number of different entities.
I'm going to ask and also answer the next question. Can the Office of Research please provide a template for or example of SOPs for researchers who work only in their offices and by themselves? I am happy to share mine with you. It will be on our website, and I actually just took our general template, which I was partly responsible for writing, so I was pretty comfortable with it. And I just let those headings be the things that I thought about as I thought about what my process looks like. All right, the next question, totally different research environment. Working in a large research lab with an open floor plan, my students are expected to wear face coverings. How should I proceed if other PIs or their students choose not to wear a mask? I guess this is similar to the question we had earlier, but I would prefer that they did.
Again, this is the recommendation from Utah State University, and is that people are expected to wear face coverings where social distancing cannot be maintained. And I will again repeat that in discussions with University Counsel Micah McKinney, she has indicated that PIs can require within their research environments face coverings to be worn. If there's a disagreement between faculty in a common environment, I encourage you to follow up with University Counsel, covid-19@usu.edu. They will help or direct you to places to help resolve this difference of expectations.
How are we doing on time? Let's see. I think
1:40.
Okay, we have good time. So there are a bunch of questions about facilities and the supplies. With respect to supplies, this is more a comment. There has been a difference between promises that we hear and the actual ability to get them from facilities. Is facilities being overwhelmed by individual orders? Should departments be coordinating supply requests?
Again, with supplies, I would reach out to facilities and follow up. I'd send an email to covid-19@usu.edu, and I'd also probably talk with my department head about purchasing some stuff internally and then making sure that is billed to the appropriate accounts that may be reimbursed. Your business managers will know what I'm talking about when I refer to that.
Going back to the issue of Cache Valley County Council or Cache County Council wanting to go to USU will continue to operate cautiously and use these SOPs that we're developing. Has the university discussed the legal ramifications? She's asking because going to green means a member of the research group might be more likely to pick up COVID simply by going to the store. So from a legal standpoint, what do we know about the considerations?
I cannot answer that question. That is a question that University Council would best be positioned to answer, and so I would refer you to that office.
Okay, this is the last question in the chat feed that I have right now. If PIs later see new situations that require an update to their SOP, how should that update be done?
Excellent question. We haven't outlined this yet, but I would imagine that you take your document and you modify it and submit again to your department head for a second approval. I can see this happening very easily in my own research environment as matters change. And so I encourage PIs to have these be active working documents that may need to be updated periodically as conditions change. And so we will make that clear to the department heads that that's how we're thinking about it. But I absolutely agree that things could need to be updated.
Those are the questions that we have. Oh, wait, no, here comes a new one. When will you send out the common box folder to post SOPs from a department head?
Yes, we already have the box structure set up. We wanted to give it a little time, so my assistant, Teresa Seeholzer, was anticipating sending out the link to that next week. If you would like it sooner, let us know, but we could send it as early as Monday. Everything is set up. And I would just also say we have set it up by a college department structure. If you are in a research center or other entity that would like your own folder instead, we had a request from the water lab for this. Please just notify Teresa Seeholzer in my office, and she will set you up with a folder appropriate for your research center.
Great. So now questions are coming in. Let's see. Someone in our department became ill with COVID and had contact with most other faculty, at least one group session, in a group session. This person did not wish the illness to be known, and therefore no one has contacted us. Is this behavior still allowed? If yes, why?
Any report that you receive of someone positive, now there's issues here of privacy. I'm going to start there. There are issues of privacy. But I would contact risk management with the question that you just directed to me. And I would suggest that they are the experts that should be handling this type of question. We have had questions come into the research office regarding research environments and potential exposure. In each case, I have directed the question to risk management, and they have worked through the issues to notify appropriate individuals and address the situation in full.
I think this is actually a fairly closely related question. Facilities personnel are moving all across campus and throughout buildings, often not wearing masks, using social distancing, and what appears to be, or without any concern for the ongoing epidemic. Why is there such a disconnect, and what can be done about it?
This is an excellent question. Many of us, including myself, are speaking out on this issue. Just this morning, I walked through the TSC and I saw what I would term very limited mask wearing. This is something I've brought to the attention of the highest levels of the university, specifically pointing out the disconnect that we are asking our faculty and our researchers to develop SOPs to mitigate risk, and that this is still an issue on campus. And so know that there are people who are reporting this. I don't want to take more credit than is due, but I want to say all of us need to speak out about this because it's a cultural issue. We need to reinforce what the cultural expectation is going to be. And I did that this morning, and I encourage you to do it, to reach out and to report when you feel that the campus is not meeting the expectations that we're setting forth.
Okay, came in on the heels of that. Would you consider entertaining requests from faculties to support hourly research employees should they be impacted by COVID?
This is a separate issue, and I'm going to keep it focused here on SOP development, but I want you to know I highly recognize that this is an issue. We are looking at how the federal agencies are responding. We're working with our peer institutions through APLU to also understand how it's being addressed on other campuses. And this is, as I would, it's a data collecting and an analysis situation right now. We're very much stuck right now trying to understand how the federal agencies will move forward. The last I heard, and there may have been an update, I haven't talked to Kevin Peterson in a couple days about this, but right now, things like no-cost extensions and things are going through easily. But the issue of students and their completion is something that is still out there. Their inability to complete experiments, field work, in-person interviews through human subjects research is something we know is of concern and will remain on our radar.
So this person said that they saw somewhere that non-contact trash receptacles were available, but can't find the reference. Do we know who they should be asking about that?
I don't know anything about that. Blake or Alexa, do you know anything?
I haven't heard anything about it, but to me that sounds like facilities again. Somebody observes that they saw 6 landscapers in a small utility vehicle after they had driven separately with their co-PI to a research site. Very frustrating. Yes, I agree. I have a field sampling project at various sites around the state. The students doing the sampling are coming from both Logan and the Salt Lake area. If, say, 5 students are needed, can they not travel together from similar locations to the site?
This is a great question. And in fact, I want to point out that this came up yesterday at a university leadership meeting. The fact that Utah State University has not yet clearly addressed these issues with regard to travel related to research and to other activities and what the guidelines are. I can tell you that yesterday, recognizing that we have not met with providing guidance that's clear on this, President Cockett did name a new group to work on it effective immediately. I am a portion of that group, as is Dean Joe Ward of the College of Humanities and Social Sciences. We recognize that there has been disconnect and perhaps different ideas of how this should be happening. The goal of that committee will be to try to clarify guidance so that we can be providing that to the campus.
I'm not sure I completely understand this last question. I'll just read it as it sits and maybe you can interpret it as you see fit. To bring funding for hourly into the SOP, having a written policy to hold them harmless would promote possibly needed isolation.
I think that has to do with the leave question for people employed on grants. And as I responded before, this is an area where we still have to continue to look at the issue and figure out. It came up yesterday in the president's meeting. There was a question that went to Dave Cowley yesterday about this in the president's meeting with university leadership. And so we will reach out again to Dave to try to understand that issue. But right now we cannot provide clear guidance other than what's available by HR guidance on the COVID-19 website for Utah State University. And I would encourage you to read that guidance and consider if it applies at all to your situation.
Yeah, I have to add that the materials that we have on the FP page are really intended as a collection of best practices collated from other institutions similar to ours around the country. They're not, I mean, nobody's going to do all 100% of the things on that list because those don't apply in 100% of situations. They're things to think about. They're things that we know work, and they're supported by data. So I think it's important to look at that list, not the list that's embedded in the SOP template, but the actual content on our webpage. Look at that. If you know of other resources, maybe from your professional society, please feel free to share that back to us. We would love to know how people are talking about it in different disciplines. So that would be great. There's a new question. When is the due date for having SOPs submitted and approved? And will there be any intervention by the university for researchers that have not submitted an SOP?
The due date for the SOPs to your department head is June 30th. I know some department heads, including my own, have put an earlier deadline on so that the department head has time to review it. So I would encourage you to ask your department head if you have not been notified, if they have any difference from the June 30th deadline. The expectation is that to continue forward in research, a PI will provide this SOP information for their activities. I will return to USU Policy 337, where it's defined that researchers are expected to provide guidance within reason to their students, staff, fellow researchers in order to ensure safety. And so that policy underlies what we're doing at this point. The COVID-19 pandemic risk is something that we need to address, and to do so is something that all PIs should do. And that's going to make us a stronger research institution and allow us to move forward in the research and creative activities that all of us want to do. Okay.
No more questions.
Okay, if that's the case, we are happy to do another presentation next week. If people feel that it would be helpful, please reach out to us if you have questions. One of the things I want you to know about how we operate is that we're very much a team in the Office of Research. And so I'm gonna ask my colleagues to also say some closing remarks here. But I want you to know that from a chemist, an art historian, and a water engineer, we're trying to bring our collective expertise to addressing these important issues. You can reach out to us and as Alexa said, enlighten us to things we should be thinking about that are coming from your areas. And we appreciate that very much. And so I, as the VPR, as the Vice President for Research, want to celebrate your research. I want to see USU move forward to produce the kind of exciting discoveries that we talked about at the beginning of this meeting. I want our assistant professors to be able to move forward with their research, to get their programs off the ground, and to have the kinds of things return as we can to the kinds of activities we all want to be participating in. And so with that, this is a crucial step to getting there. And that's why we're putting this emphasis on SOP preparation so that we're all safe and can all move forward. Alexa, do you want to add?
Sure. I mean, as many of you know, one of my major areas of responsibility is student research, the PDRF and URF programs, ERCO grants, etc. And for me, one of the real benefits of having all PIs work on an SOP, including people who may only work with books and computers, is that it makes us think about our students and how we engage them in these safe practices. And really, they're the next generation of researchers. We need to make sure that we're modeling the behavior we would hope that they will follow as they go forward in their careers, and that we enable them to do their research, because in safe conditions, we should be able to and be productive.
I guess what I would say is, again, thanks for all that you do. And it's a pleasure for me to be in a position where I get to see the fruits of your labors and be amazed and impressed. I think we probably many of us have a love-hate relationship with mandates. We want to be told what to do, but then when we're told what to do, we don't like to be told what to do. And the approach that we've been taking, and hopefully it's obvious through this presentation, is the Office of Research isn't mandating per se. We're actually trying to provide resources for you so that you can take responsibility for the safety of your research environment. And all the things in the SOP template, again, as Alexa said, are recommendations, things to think about, things that you may not have thought about. But we are not experts in all of your fields. So sort that and apply what makes sense, and then bring in new things if appropriate, with the goal of again, not getting past our scrutiny, but to create a safe working environment and continue to be successful in your research.
Okay, with that, we thank you all for attending. Again, we welcome your questions and comments through our website. And also, if you feel to email us, remember there is a central email address, covid-19@usu.edu, to address questions that may be those broad questions about face coverings and others that you feel you need the university level input. But with that, thank you again. Have a safe weekend, and we look forward to seeing your SOPs come in. And before I leave, I would just encourage you, this is a great activity to share with your colleagues. Sharing best practices across the department would be a great activity. And so I encourage our department heads who are listening, maybe our associate deans, to help facilitate those processes so that it may alleviate the burden a little bit on the faculty and also really bring forward some great ideas to implement in your areas. So with that, take care and thank you for attending.